Hello and welcome to today's episode of Boating with the Stewarts. Today I am again here at the Vallejo Marina. Our boat is still in the shop, but I had a conversation with the shop a few days ago and they say that we should be ready within 3 days for pickup. So that's good news. But in the meantime, instead of going out to Pittsburgh, I decided to come right down here to Vallejo, to the beautiful Vallejo Marina, and film this episode for you guys. So on today's episode, we're actually going to be going on another trip up into the Delta. A friend of mine named Tony, who was actually the guy who got us into boating, we're going to be meeting up with him. And Tony actually has the same exact boat we have, 24-foot Bayliner. And so we're going to be meeting up with Tony and going to a spot that he goes to a lot up in the Delta. And his boat is in the Delta. We're in Pittsburgh area, which is kind of down from the Delta a little bit. So we're going to be going up and meeting with him and then following him to a dock that's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Like it's not connected to a marina or anything like that. It's just this dock that's sitting out in the middle of nowhere. And what we're going to do is we're going to spend a day barbecuing, hanging out with family and everything like that. So keep in mind, we don't know a lot about the Delta. So what we're doing is me and Tony got together, pulled up Garvin Navigation and set a waypoint for a place for us to meet. So the Garvin is going to take us to this place where we're going to meet with Tony. And then from there, we're going to head out to the dock and spend the day barbecuing and hanging out with family. Once I show you that, we're going to come back and have a little bit of talk about the title for this video, which is, are you doing it right? And there's a whole story behind that. So stay tuned. Welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed that little video. This is just an example of some of the ways that my wife and I utilize our boat. And that rolls us into the title for this episode, Am I Doing It Right? So before you think about buying a boat, you need to think about what it is you're trying to do, right? One of the things that I pointed out in a previous video was that when we got our boat, we actually had a number of friends that had boats. And what we discovered is once we got our boat that there's a huge difference between someone who's a boater and someone who just owns a boat. What we discovered was that a lot of our friends, even though they owned boats, they were actually only really utilizing their boats 3, maybe 4 times a year. And originally our plan was to get the boat, we put it in a slip, we'll find a trailer, and then we would, bring it home. Well, what ended up happening was after about 3 months, we realized that, if the boat was at home, we would actually not be utilizing it as much as we were utilizing it. Again, like I mentioned in a previous video, where our boat is located was 30 minutes from my wife's job, 30 minutes from the house. So at least 2 to 3 times a week, my wife would call me when she was getting off work and say, hey, you want to meet me at the boat? And I'd be like, sure. And so we were at the boat at least 2 to 3 times during the week and then on the weekend. So we're utilizing our boat heavily. And a lot of that was based on, that fact. Also the fact that I know who I am. If I every time I wanted to utilize the boat, if I had to go pull it out the backyard, hitch it up to a trailer, do all these different things, it probably wouldn't have happened as much. I had a friend who was good at working on car stereos. When we first got the boat, the first thing that I did was I put a grill on it. I figured out, how to mount the grill. I did a bunch of Googling, YouTube videos, all that kind of stuff. I got the grill going. My second project was the music. One night, me and my wife were at the boat about 11 o'clock at night, 11:30, something like that. I'm having a problem with the music. I called my buddy up with a question. Turns out he was in the area. He was like, hey, I'll swing by. He comes by. I meet him at the gate, walk him in. He starts asking me questions about the marina. Where do you get gas from? You got 24-hour access. He couldn't believe I had 24-hour access, all these different things. And at the end of the night, he just finally said, hey, man, I'm doing this all wrong. And because he has a boat, he can't store the boat at his house. So he stores it at another friend's house whose house happened to be having a whole bunch of land where he could store the boat. So whenever he wanted to use his boat, he would have to get in contact with his friend. Hey, you're going to be home. I want to come get the boat. So now he's up at 6 o'clock in the morning, going over there to get the boat, pull it out of this guy's backyard. Then he needs to find a gas station where it's tall enough for him to get the boat under, like all of the things that he had to go through just to utilize his boat played a big part in him only really utilizing his boat like 3 to 4 times a year. Whereas I know I'm not going to do all that and I will be in the same space. So we made a decision to keep the boat at the marina because we actually wanted to utilize the boat. So I had other friends who had boats and they started asking like, well, hey, how much does it cost for it to be at the marina? Because they were kind of digging what we were doing too. We were paying we had a 24-foot bay liner. We were paying $249 a month. Right. Most of the guys I talked to felt like, oh man, that's too much. I ain't paying an extra 200 some dollars a month. And here's the thing. It was worth it. Right. It's all about getting your money's worth. Now, if I was going to pay $249 a month to store my boat at the marina, but I'm still only using the boat 3 to 4 times a year, then okay, yeah, I'm not getting my money's worth. Right. You're not getting your money's worth. Even now, there are boats in our shed that never move. And these people are paying the same. Actually, we have a larger boat now, so we're paying way more money. But those people aren't getting their money's worth. The only boats in our shed that actually move is our boat, and next to us is the fire department boat. Those are the only two boats that move. All the rest of the boats got cobweb, and these are nice boats. They're not abandoned or anything like that. Those people aren't getting their money's worth. And just to give you an example, my wife and I went to Sacramento for our anniversary, and I'm going to do another video about that. But we went to Sacramento for our anniversary. We went up on a Thursday, stayed till Sunday. So you got to think we're paying $294 a month at the marina for us to be at the marina. We stayed in Sacramento for that amount of time for free. And just the motel rooms alone, that cost comes up to more than what our marina fee is, right? So you have to get your money's worth. If you're going to have a boat, use it. Like if you're only going to go out boating, once or twice, three, maybe even 4 or 5 times a year, you can rent a boat. You don't need to having a boat. There's a financial obligation attached to having a boat. You have insurance, even if you don't have it at the marina. You have insurance, maintenance, all kind of different things that you're paying this stuff. And if you're not using the boat, you're just not getting your money's worth. I had a buddy who had a fishing boat. Another one of my friends that, was like, I'm a boater. Actually, the guy who helped me bring the boat back to Pittsburgh, he had a center console fishing boat at home. And at some point, he started noticing what me and my wife were doing with our boat, and he decided to get another boat. Coincidentally, he bought the same exact boat we bought, 24-foot bayliner. When he got it, he called me. I came over to the house. It was a nice boat. Not only was it the same exact boat that we had, but it had this extended swim deck on it that was golden. Like I looked at that and I was like, yeah, I need that. I immediately started Googling that. It came with a grill, everything. Over the course of the next year and a half, he only went out like 5 times. He would call me and ask me questions. And I started telling him, hey, man, where you live at, there's actually a marina about 10 minutes from your house. And it was a nice marina. Actually, it's a marina that I want to go to at some point. and just their restaurants there. It's about an hour's ride from where my boat is. It's definitely a destination location. And I told him, hey man, why don't you put the boat in the water? And then you could utilize the boat more often. And he turned his nose up at the cost of the marina fees. And was like, nah, man, I'd rather have it at the house. And I just tried to explain to him, if you had it in the marina, in the water, you would actually use it more. And he turned his nose up. About a year and a half later, he's like, hey, I'm going to sell the boat. So what you selling it for? And he was like, oh man, it's just not doing what I needed to do. So I said, did you ever get the grill going? Because it came with a grill. Those grills are pretty expensive. It came with a grill. I said, did you ever get the grill going? He said, nah, man, it's still sitting in the garage. And I literally said, man, you're not doing it right. I said, you 100% not doing it right. I said, look, if you had the boat in the water, when you get home from work, your wife get home from work, that marina is 10 minutes from your house. I said, you guys could go down. You got the grill, throw some steaks and some shrimp on the grill, chill on the boat. I said, not only that, there are a lot of cool spots up there where you're at, where you can go and stay overnight. Like the marina, not the marina, but the Delta system in Northern California is full of restaurants and bars and all kind of different places that sit right on the water. So an ideal situation, which is something that me and my wife got into heavily, was going out to the boat, leaving out of Pittsburgh by 9:30, 10 o'clock, going up into the Delta. We'll go to this one spot and have brunch, and then go over here, push the boat up into the reeds, chill, later on, throw some stuff on the grill. Like, to me, that's how you actually do it. My boat was set up for fishing. It had rod holders and all that stuff. I'm not a big fisherman, but it is set up for fishing. So I bought some poles, and, I mean, it's really kind of like, what are you doing? What are you hoping to get from this? And are you doing it right? One of the things that he just wasn't doing was really utilizing the boat in the way that it could be utilized. 24-foot Bayliner, it's an overnight boat. It has a bathroom, shower, kitchen, all the stuff. You and your wife go out. Me and my wife viewed our boat as a condo on the water. We could just go out to the boat, go somewhere in the Delta system in Northern California. You can go to Sacramento, you can go to Stockton. There are all kind of other places you can go and just spend the night. If you're into fishing, you can go drop the anchor, get your fishing pole going. It's all kind of different things that you can do. So, if you have a boat and you feel like you're not enjoying it, my question is, are you doing it right? And what is it exactly you want to do? Even if you're a fisherman, I have another buddy, my friend Tony, who turned us on to boating. He had the same exact boat that we had, 24-foot Bayliner. He upgraded to the 30-foot Bayliner. He's also a fisherman. He can fish off of that Bayliner, but he also has a jet ski that he has set up exclusively for fishing. So recently, he got rid of the jet ski and actually bought a fishing boat. So now he has his boat at a marina, his 30-foot Bayliner at a marina, and he also has his fishing boat in dry storage at the marina. And what he does is, the way his marina is set up is, if he's at home not doing nothing and he feels like fishing, he'll call the marina, say, put the boat in the water. He's there in about 30 minutes, and boom, he's out there fishing. And at least twice a week when I call him, as soon as he answers the phone, I can hear in the background, I'm like, you out fishing? He's like, yup. So, having that boat in dry storage at the marina, it doesn't cost as much as the regular storage with a slip, but it's still worth it for him because he's fishing at least two to three times a week, as opposed to the guy who has a fishing boat that's just sitting in his driveway and he's only getting out maybe 5 times a year. So you really got to kind of think about what it is you want and what is it worth to you. Any hobby that you're going to have, it's going to cost money and it's going to cost time. Even if you golf, like, a lot of people don't notice, but golfing is kind of expensive. I know guys that are really into golfing. They don't mind paying the money, and they're out at some golf course at least 2 to 3 times a month golfing. So if you consider yourself a boater or wanting to get into boating and as a hobby, if you're not doing it, then it's kind of like, what are you doing? You are wasting your money. You're paying insurance every month. Then you have maintenance, all these different things. Why, if you're not doing it? So that was the whole point of this video. Are you doing it right? That's the big question. Are you doing it right? Especially like if you're married, you know, you and your wife, or even if you just got a girlfriend or whatever, being able to get out on the boat is an opportunity to get away from the things that you're normally doing, right? You go out on the boat for the weekend. You're doing something different, especially if you have kids. My wife and I have kids. Our kids are fairly old. Leaving them at home for the weekend is not a problem. So us being able to get away from the kids, get out on the boat, have some one-on-one time is golden. Like I have a friend that had a ski boat, a wake boat. When he seen what me and my wife were doing, he sold his wake boat, bought a 24-foot Maxim. I want to say about 6 or 7 months later, he said, "Hey man, buying this boat saved my marriage." You know what I'm saying? He literally said, "Buying this boat saved my marriage." He was like, "Bro, me and my wife do this, we do that. Like, thank you. You are a positive influence." But I'm going to be sharing more videos of the stuff that me and my wife do on our boat. If you have any questions, hit me up. You know, um, yeah, I'm more than willing to share some of our experiences, which is what this is all about. And yeah, so like and subscribe. And thanks for tuning in.